Hi, thank you so much for joining me today for the quarterly LeanLaw Pro Partner Roundtable. This is Debbie Williams, the Partner Manager here at LeanLaw. I am joined by Tracie Cook, our resident QBO expert and LeanLaw expert. She's been with LeanLaw for years, and she is definitely our go-to resource internally. Tracie is invaluable in her knowledge of both LeanLaw and QuickBooks Online. And then I also have Melissa Schaefers with me today, and she's going to be going over some product things a little bit later in the call. Some recent features or functionality that we have rolled out and some things that are up and coming shortly. So definitely stick around, listen for that. A few housekeeping items. Feel free to put any questions you have in the question panel. We'll get those fielded, and at the very end, we will also have a Q&A in order to catch any questions or have any discussions that you wish to have at that time. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Tracie so that she can start sharing how to utilize the LeanLaw Accountant account in order to start your client accounts and also to integrate LeanLaw and QuickBooks if you're setting up a new client. Now, one thing to note is that if you do have a client that you set up through your LeanLaw Accountant account, be sure to email me and let me know. I want to make sure that you get credit for all of those referrals, and I won't have insight to that if you just sign them up directly through the LeanLaw Accountant account. So always make sure to email me and let me know at debbie@myleanlaw.com if you do have anybody that you set up directly through your accountant account. And without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Tracie.
If you have an accountant account, then you would want to have them use that same email. So that's similar to QuickBooks accountant account. You're able to go through everybody from within LeanLaw. So it makes it really easy to toggle back and forth among clients. If you are going to set somebody up new from your LeanLaw account, you're just going to go to Settings, and then over on the left, My Firms, and you're going to say Set Up New Firm. And when you set up a new firm, it's going to ask you how many seats and so forth. And you're just going to say, go ahead and set them up. What's the name of the firm? I called it July Law Firm. And we'll just say there's one seat. Now, after you do that, then you're able to go into the July Law Firm or whichever you just set up and log in. Once you do that and you log into that firm, you're now going to be in their new account. From here is going to be where you will go into their settings and add their users. Once they come in, you would have them go ahead and select their subscription and get all of that stuff set up. When we connect LeanLaw to QuickBooks, I usually start on the QuickBooks side. I'm in this July law firm, and I usually start on their chart of accounts to make sure that there's certain things in place that need to be there in order for LeanLaw to properly connect to them. First thing is identify if there's an operating account and a trust account. If there is a trust account, we want to make sure that the detail type is set to trust. In LeanLaw, we separate most of the time hard costs and soft costs. Hard costs are typically set up to go to advanced client costs or whatever name you'd like, and it's set up as an other current asset in QuickBooks. All of those costs are recorded in QuickBooks, either via an expense if it's a credit card, a check if it's coming out of the operating account, whether it's an actual check or an EFT or a wire, or even a bill if they have a vendor and you don't want to pay the bill yet, maybe like a court reporter, but you want to get it into LeanLaw and onto the client's invoice. So those are three different ways. And you can set them up by manually recording them here, or if you have your bank feed connected, you can also record them from the bank feed. It's set up as an other current asset, so it will show on the balance sheet. And when you record something and it increases this account, it'll push into LeanLaw. And then as soon as that invoice is created in LeanLaw, it backs out of this account. So in theory, any balance that you see in your register in QuickBooks would represent the unbilled expenses that are sitting in LeanLaw waiting to be invoiced to the client. We set up the advanced client cost account in QuickBooks. The thing I look for is their law is going to only connect to one main revenue account and it needs to be set up as service fee income. All of the time entries that get on an invoice and the flat fees will come to this account. Some firms have sub-accounts that are maybe set up by practice category, real estate, criminal, and so forth. There's two different ways to handle those sub-accounts. One is to set up practice areas in lien law, and then there's a report that can be pulled, revenue by practice area. I've found that 99% of the time, if they can be accessed by a report in lien law, partners and attorneys don't really care if it's on the P&L. If they do care, what would have to be done is at the end of the month, run that report or journal entry to reallocate everything that's in this top level account to either different accounts or different sub accounts. All right. That's a quick preview of what we typically look for on the chart of accounts. If you're going to connect everything for them, you'll come into settings. You'll come down to the QuickBooks integration and say connect to QuickBooks. If you have an accountant account, it's going to first find your account and then it will search through your client list until you find the one that you want. And then it's just a simple matter of connecting it. All right. The next thing we do is set up the revenue account that it's going to. In this case, it's legal service. If there's not a pre-existing product or service that you want to connect to, you can let LeanLaw tell QuickBooks to create a new one. The QuickBooks Sync is what brings over those hard costs. So we're going to enable that. We're going to find our advanced client cost account. Again, letting it create a product and service. If that account is already existing, you would want to be sure what date you're pulling everything over from. You wouldn't want to pull over a bunch of stuff that's already been billed. So you'd want to watch out for that. And then the second thing is for the soft costs. So we usually set up a different account for that, and that would go to billable expense income. So that would be things for if you're making a bunch of photocopies in the office and you want to charge somebody $20, that would go in, be recorded on the lien law side as a soft cost. As opposed to if you go to Kinko's and get copies made and put it on a credit card, that gets recorded in QuickBooks as a hard cost. All right, that part is done. So the next part is we're going to make sure that this little button is turned on because going forward, the firms will always create new clients and matters from within lien law and they'll automatically be synced over to QuickBooks. That's one of the things that does not work the other way around. So we want to always create clients and matters in lien law as well as update contact information. And I'm just keeping this pretty high level, so I'm not going to go over all of the other things that you can do at this point. I'm just going to go ahead and save changes. And the next thing, I'm going to set up trust accounting. The first thing it's going to ask for is to create a vendor, which is in the name of the firm. So when you apply money that's in trust to an invoice, check will be recorded on the trust account bank register in QuickBooks. Now, most of the time people don't actually cut the checks, but it is recorded as a check just to get it on there. Usually people will just do online transfers, but either way, it's going to record for compliance purposes that the money that's coming out of the account is going to the name of the firm. It's going to want to know what your operating account is so it knows where to apply payments. I usually set everything up to go to undeposited funds so that if there are a number of payments, we can bundle them together to record it onto the bank register as what's going to actually be deposited as opposed to individual deposits being listed one at a time. Then it will find our trust account for us and it's going to want to look for a trust liability account. If you don't have one already there, it's going to automatically create a funds held in trust account. I'm going through this assuming everybody knows why all of these things need to be there. And if there are questions at the end, we can answer them. And if anybody wants an additional one-on-one to do a deeper dive into stuff, also very happy to do that as well. All right. One of the best things about the trust accounting on the lien law side is you're able to always see your balances. So even though this says bank balance, it's actually the bank register balance. So you've got your register balance, which should always equal your total liabilities, which should equal the total of each client's individual portion. And then the clients will be listed all down here, which basically represents each person's trust ledger. Even though you can see all of this from lien law, everything actually lives in QuickBooks. The only thing that lives in lien law are time entries and flat fees. Everything else, even though you handle it all from the lien law side, really just lives on the QuickBooks side. All right, let me pause for questions because I just threw a whole bunch of stuff at the new people. Karen and Linda are probably like, yeah. But for everybody else, any questions?
Doesn't look like any have come into the chat panel, but if anybody has a question, go ahead and throw it into chat. We'll get that fielded. I have a question, Tracie. So let's say that, so we're supposed to create the new clients and matters and lien laws that we push to QuickBooks. What happens if by accident a matter or a new client is created in QuickBooks? How do we get that synced up with lien law if we do an wrong entry point?
If you accidentally create a new client, we can do that. Let's accidentally create a new client. So let's go to our clients. And maybe you're connecting somebody that already has clients in QuickBooks. And obviously, you're not going to create them again. So let's just go ahead and add a client in here or a company. Let's just say ABC Company. I'm not going to bother putting in all of the contact info, but let's just go ahead and save that. So maybe you've got some pre-existing clients in QuickBooks, but now you want to use LeanLaw. So what do? So in that setup part, when you were originally under integrations in QuickBooks and you did all of this setup, there is an option. There's a great question, Debbie. There is an option down here to import clients from QuickBooks. So when you do that, it's going to look into your QuickBooks list and it's going to see everybody. Now you can just choose them all, choose the responsible attorney, and just say import clients. Now, because LeanLaw needs to have at least one matter with every client, and every matter has to have a name, it's going to automatically bring this client over with a matter with the same name. So if we go to our client section and we open ABC Company, we're going to see on the left, there's a matter also called ABC Company. So here we might want to just change that to general business matter and then update it. So now when you look, you've got your ABC Company as the client, and you've got a matter called general business matter. And then from here, you can add additional matters if you needed to. We're just going to choose ABC Company as second matter. I'm very creative today. I apologize. And say hourly and create. So you can see all of the matters under this client will show here. All right. Any questions? I'm going to put Linda on the spot, and I'm going to make it so she's allowed to talk. Linda, what would be some good advice for new people just coming on to LeanLaw as a LeanLaw accounting person advocate? What would be something good for them to know as far as this setup goes? You're muted.
With LeanLaw, if you just have to remember it's a two-way sync. I think that's the thing that I live by with that. When you're doing this client work, and I love what you said about if you're working with attorneys, they really don't need to have all that detail in their QuickBooks file when they're breaking it out by practice area, for example. And I found over the years, the best way for me to tackle that with a client is I'm like, look, I don't want to have to go put the journal entry in, to be honest with you. I really don't want to have to do that because sometimes they change things and then they change their numbers and then they're like, why is this wrong? Why is this extra? And to me, this is where they need to live in LeanLaw, the client.
Yep.
And if they need their reports, they should be getting their reports out of here for the most part when it's client based. And I think that just knowing that when you're working through it, it will help you. I know when working with attorneys, the biggest part about this is standing firm in the fact that you're the expert here over them. And then you just say, look, I always had it on my report.
Yeah.
You want it that way. You're like, no, look, this is a better report. You're going to get so much more data out of here.
Yep.
You should be getting your data from here. If
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they really have to have it on the P&L, I'll throw that journal entry in at the end of the year when we've closed out the year, but I don't want to be doing that monthly.
Yeah. I found that they're like, oh, that's fine. If there's a report for that, I don't ever really care where it comes from. I just want to be able to see it.
Yeah.
So that it keeps the panel a lot cleaner going forward, and they can see it. They can even get a more granular breakdown from looking at it on the LeanLaw sides. It's just.
And then you gently remind them that you want your attorneys living in LeanLaw. You don't want to give them access to QuickBooks. Oh, no, I don't. Okay, there's the end of your story.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I'll always tell people is that 96.5% of everything they can do within LeanLaw. And having been doing this for so long, we all know that it's much better to keep attorneys out of QuickBooks.
Yeah.
They hate being in there. We hate them being in there. So it's all good.
So true.
Karen, do you have anything to add for any of the new people? You're muted. Karen might have just been waiting for the good part with Melissa, so that's okay too. My feelings aren't hurt. All right. Anybody else have any questions? You can put them in the chat. No? All right. I think it was a really rapid fire, quick paced, high level kind of little demo there.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Trace. It's always like, no matter how many times I've seen or like I myself have, and I've set up my own LeanLaw via accounts. I always like to watch it again because it's so easy. I love that. It's so easy to get LeanLaw hooked up to QuickBooks, get the clients brought in if QuickBooks account is already existing and that kind of thing. And it's always fun to see and to show how easy it is for our pros to be able to access their client accounts from their LeanLaw Accountant account. And to all of you, when you join the Pro program, you got that email with the link to sign up for your own LeanLaw Accountant account. If you didn't, for whatever reason, email ended up in a junk folder, you didn't get your account set up, just email me and I will send you a fresh new link so you can do that. I highly recommend it. If you're working with clients that are using LeanLaw, you definitely want to be able to access them from within one spot, similar to how QBO accountant accounts. You can do that. So, well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Tracy. If you guys have any other questions, do pop them into that chat panel. I'm going to now kick this over to Melissa. This is super exciting. You guys are going to love hearing some of the new things that we've got that have been coming out within LeanLaw over the last several months. She may be able to give us a little hint of one or two things that are coming down the pipeline in the near future. But don't we always love to have access to somebody who's tightly connected to product? That is super exciting. So Melissa, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, so like we said, I'm going to just review some of the stuff we've released over the last few months. And then I think I'll have some time to be able to talk about some of the stuff that's coming up as well. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to try and give some context for these things because we've been working in a few areas recently. Number one, you guys, I guess if you're new, probably not, but if you've been with us for a while, you probably already heard this. But we recently made some updates to time entries and fixed fees or flat fees. Some attorneys work like partially on a fixed or a flat fee basis. There's this task that I do that I'm really good at, and I know that I can do it in a certain amount of time. So I'll just bill a fixed rate. I think end clients really like that because there's always some concern about, oh my gosh, am I getting overcharged by my lawyer? When you have such a high hourly rate and you have like unlimited runway, that can feel a little bit scary. What is my bill going to be at the end of this month? So end clients really like flat fee or fixed fee work. But one of the problems is that you may get in there and realize, oh, this is actually more complicated than I thought it was going to be. If your like uncontested divorce like gets out of hand and then suddenly you're spending all this extra time on it that you weren't expecting to. So it's important, and we recommend that attorneys, even if they are working on a flat fee basis, track their time still. And we've made it so that now when you track time, let's see, for a fixed fee, let's create one while we're working on this. So maybe we are working on an uncontested divorce, can decide to bill it on a specific date if it's just something that I just completed. If I wanted to, I could make this recur like on a monthly, weekly, annual basis.
Melissa, can I interject? Can you go ahead and share your screen?
Oh no, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh my gosh.
That's okay. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Another reason why it's good for attorneys to track their time versus like pretty much anybody to track their time is it just could be that something that used to take 30 minutes or something is now actually taking 45 on a consistent basis. You don't know if you need to like adjust your rates, or perhaps you've gotten really efficient and now you're fine. But if you're not tracking your time, you won't know. It might actually be a bit more profitable in the task. So I think it's always a good practice, no matter what your role, to track time.
Definitely. Yeah. So we'll create a fixed fee. We'll add a fixed fee here to save time. I'll use one of the templates that I've defined already. And like I said, I could set this to bill on a specific date. If I want this to be recurring, I can make it recurring. I can also set it to bill on completion. So there are tasks like IP firms come to mind that have a specific list of tasks you have to do for every patent application, and they happen concurrently a little bit, and it's just done when it's done. Like when the application is filed, you can bill that fixed fee. So I'm going to set this to be billed on completion so that I can track time against it, work on it for a few months, bill all of my other matter as I normally do, and keep this fixed fee and its time entries back from being billed until it's done and I'm ready to actually bill my client for it. So let's go ahead and create this. And then I'll be able to add, as I'm working on it, I can track time against that fixed fee. So I had a phone call, the client, it took an hour. I'm going to make it type fixed fee, so it's not a billable time entry. And I'll be able to, let's see, I think I might have accidentally put that on the wrong, put the fixed fee in the wrong place. One sec. But I'll be able to select my fixed fee there in a second.
Melissa, can you change
Mhm.
that fee later?
Change it later? Yeah. Like in what way?
So I have a client who, again, this is terrible practice, and I don't know that I can train somebody that's been practicing 30 years to start entering time, but they are not entering time on their flat fee cases. It's like contingency work. They do pretty tax disputes.
Okay.
And so sometimes he'll say, I want to do 33% of recovery. Sometimes he'll say, this is a nice guy, let's do 28%. Sometimes he'll say, this guy's really annoying, let's do 38%. We go into it not knowing what he's ultimately going to say the flat fee will be at the end.
Right, totally. Yeah, definitely. That is, so I'll show you how to do that right now. We'll add a couple time entries to this last week, and then I'll show you how to change that.
I just love snippets for those repetitive tasks. They're
Definitely.
fantastic.
Definitely. Cool. So we're going to go back to that same matter, and I'll open up our fixed fees. And this obviously it starts with an amount. So we don't know yet like what we're going to recover potentially, like in the contingency case. But say that we get that, like we get that settlement, or someone's cutting us a check and we know what that final amount is going to be. I haven't billed this yet, so I can just change the amount to whatever I want. Let's say that this is 3,000, and it doesn't matter that I've already got that I've used a template when I applied this originally. I can just override that isn't locked in any way. So we'll just save that. The amount's been updated, and the time entries that I associated with it are still associated. So stuff like that you can change really easily. It's no problem. And then, so for this, like just to drive this point home a little bit, we'll see that when I go and look for that specific matter, there's nothing on the ready to bill page because I haven't marked it complete yet. So this is really, having a completion-based fixed fee is really useful when your client, or when the law firm you're working with has a bunch of stuff that is like outcome based. Like we're not going to bill this until like XYZ is done, and you don't want it in your ready to bill page, kind of something that you have to remember each month when you're doing billing to pull it out. So all I need to do is go to matter for fixed fee, and I am going to mark that complete. Perfect. Now we'll go back to billing. Here we are. And now the fixed fee hours that I tracked along with the fixed fee, we updated the amount, is here and it's ready to be billed. And so I can click and to create the draft invoice. So that's really useful. But if you don't have stuff like that that needs to be held back until like a certain thing has been done, that's super easy. You just instead create or edit your completion-based fixed fee to be billed on a specific date and pick today or next week or the end of the month, whatever you want, and it will appear just like a regular time entry, a regular fixed fee in your ready to bill to be billed in that time period. And then the other thing that's really useful is we've made some updates to our fixed fee profitability report. So earlier we were talking about how things can get out of hand, and something that used to be really easy. Maybe you are training someone new, like you've just expanded your practice and you've got someone new on board and it takes them a long time. We can take a look at we're going to break it up by matters and fixed fees. So we've got our client, Awesome Publishing, our matter our matter Wickham divorce, and then our fixed fee uncontested divorce. So you can see I'm using the same fixed fee template like twice in these two different cases. And we'll take a look at the amount that we're billing, whether it's complete or not, and if it's complete, the date it was done. And the fixed fee hour value. So if instead of a fixed fee, I was billing these 6 hours at the rate for that matter, this is what I would have made. So this is actually a very profitable fixed fee. This is awesome. I only had to do 2 phone calls and we're all done. So this is definitely something that I would say, great, you're doing this efficiently. That's perfect. But if you are not, let's see, I guess I have a really efficient firm, but it'll show up as a negative balance if your like the value of your fixed fee, the difference is like you're doing more work than what your fixed fee is worth, basically. So this is a good way to keep track of that and stay on top of it. I know that was a lot of, do we have any questions about that?
There was just a comment from Karen that her immigration attorneys use that and the on completion feature. It's very helpful for them.
Yeah, that's another good example. There are certain like things that you have to file and there's no real sense in like billing for it until that's done. Yeah, I think some people, I've heard of these like family law attorneys that kind of do like, boutique like divorces where everyone's on the same page. Mediation, if you're like working as a mediator, that's like another good example. We just have stuff that you are like going to bill in increments when the task is complete. But if you have something instead, like you're working like general counsel for a few different businesses and you charge them like $1,000 a month up to a certain point, we can support that as well. You can just create a recurring fixed fee for $1,000 for them. Awesome. So we can, if any questions pop up in your head, we can return to this, but I'm super excited to tell you about our net documents integration next. So law firms obviously like work with a lot of different documents and need to keep track of all of them. As soon as you have more than a couple people like working in your practice, or even, if you have one person, just yourself, that can get really unruly because you have different templates that you want to reuse. You might be collaborating on a document with your partner, and it's important to know what is the most recent version of this. And that's what like document management services are for. We recently partnered with NetDocs so that you can create clients and matters in LeanLaw and have them pushed over to NetDocs to create like basically the file folder over there where you can keep track of everything and have it customized based on your practice area, optionally, if the law firm works with a few different practice areas. And it's super easy. So I've already got NetDocs connected to this firm. I can look in settings. I don't know how many people are familiar, like work with firms who use NetDocs. Maybe some of us. But you'll be able to choose a repository, the cabinet, if you're working with like maybe a cabinet for your clients and matters, and then another cabinet for like firm admin stuff. You'll be able to keep those. And when I create clients and matters in LeanLaw, we'll do our July client. LeanLaw will auto-generate the client ID. This depends on a couple different settings. So we have some options for this. We'll create this. I'll create the matter underneath it. General business. Same thing here. Immigration, that's not general business, but we're going to keep it anyway. We'll create this matter. And then when I go to Net Documents in LeanLaw or over here, if I actually sign in, I'll be able to find that matter now. Here we go. So there's a lot of NetDocs is really flexible and they'll help you get it set up depending on what the firm needs. Like some people have a lot of different practice areas and need like a different template for each of them, like the types of documents that you're going to need. You'll need like different stuff for a litigation trial where you're doing a ton of discovery versus like an uncontested divorce where there's just a set number of things you expect to have for like people and their property. So depending on what the practice area is in LeanLaw, you can have it set up to generate those like custom little modules in NetDocs. But the great thing about this is that you only have to enter it once. Previously, if you're using a document management system, you have to enter something in your like timekeeping and billing software, and then you have to enter it again in your document management software. And so if you put in the wrong number or if you misspell the name, it's going to be hard to keep track of both of those things. This is great, really seamless. We've just created both of them in one go, and you can It'll load up an iframe for you once you're logged into NetDocs, so you can preview it from LeanLaw if there's anything you want to take a quick look at.
The beautiful thing about this is that those clients that maybe don't want an all-in-one because they perhaps don't need all of the functionality that an all-in-one has, or they really like the functionality of LeanLaw and they want a document management that works with it. This is a great way for them to get QuickBooks, all of their legal billing with LeanLaw, and then their document management with NetDocs, and they all talk to each other. So it's a great alternative for those that are perhaps moving from an on-premise solution to something cloud-based, but again, don't perhaps want to go with a full all-in-one, kind of create that little ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we spent a lot of time thinking about what the right integration partner was for document management. We didn't want to just reinvent the wheel because we were not like super impressed by some of the like examples of like all-in-one accounting, timekeeping, billing, and document management that we saw. And NetDocs has been great to work with. They have a team of partners that they work with as well to get people onboarded and set up and get everything configured so you're getting the most out of it, which has been great.
If you guys do have any clients that are using LeanLaw and are looking for a document management solution, want to take a look at this, let me know because I can do an introduction to the NetDocs team, and we just with the relationship we built out with them, we've got a really good handoff of potential clients. So if you do have anybody that's interested in that, let me know and it will get you connected with the right folks over there.
Awesome. Cool. I'm going to show you guys some stuff that's coming up now, and we'll start working through that. We've rebuilt our time entries page, and if you're brand new to us, this probably doesn't look super exciting, but we've rebuilt our time entries page to make it a little more user-friendly, and we're in the process of rolling out our M365 timekeeping integration. So I've connected this Fern to my Outlook account, and all of my Outlook events are coming into LeanLaw as draft time entries now. So if I want to add this, it'll pull up on our right-hand side new time entry panel. I'll put in who we're working with here. Let's see. Yeah, this is publishing, date dispute. Perfect. I can add some internal notes. So this is useful for if I need to communicate something to the billing coordinator, I can write this down, or let's wait to bill this until XYZ. I can add that information in here or just hide it if I don't want it. Choose the billable type, billable, non-billable, or fixed fee, like we've been talking about. Add the start and stop times, etc. But it will like auto-populate that based on what the event is. And then I can save it. Perfect. And there it is. You can also see like your new time entries here a lot easier. What did I just add? It's easier to find that now because it will be highlighted up here. You can also adjust the columns that you're showing. So maybe you don't care about start and stop times, but you do want to look at like leads codes, for instance. You can do that and look at all that information here, as well as export it and have every column export as well. And then if you need more space, you can hide the filters. If you want to look at some insights, this is really about the timekeeping experience. But if you want to look at some insights about like where you're spending your time, if you're meeting, if you have a 6-hour a day or an 8-hour a day goal, how close you're getting to that. And you can just hide that if you're not using it. So we're super excited about this. This has been in the works for a long time. A lot of people have asked for like the ability to integrate with an Outlook calendar, and we're definitely excited to be releasing that.
This is such a neat feature release, Melissa. It's so cool because so many firms do use Outlook. And the fact that you can very easily hop that over into, yes, this is billable time. Or I don't know if you guys noticed, but can you actually open up the calendar panel again on the left, where you can see like lunch with Steve, she can just hit the X and ignore that one because it's not something that needs to go onto an invoice because it's an internal meeting or something. This functionality is so great and such an amazing way to really help those attorneys or those timekeepers make sure they're capturing everything, right? Because if it's populating from your calendar, then it's a great double check to make sure that you're really capturing every billable hour that you possibly can, or even if it's not a billable hour, if it still needs to be, represented somehow. Anyway, such a cool feature. I love this. I was geeking out a little bit when I was watching the video on it the other day.
Yes. Yeah. We're super excited about this. We have a few firms who are using it now, and we'll have it released for everyone like mid-August. Cool. Yeah, the next thing we have coming up is split billing. So for firms that work on matters that have multiple clients, like maybe someone who works with a business that has an insurance policy that covers them for a certain amount of litigation, like the matter will be litigation matter. You'll have the client A, which is like the business that you work with on a regular basis, and then client B, which is the insurance company who's covering client A and is paying for part of your services. Another example is like maybe in an estate like law firm, you often work with a group of siblings who are interested parties in a trust or like in the estate of their parents, who are all like paying for your services because you're managing the estate for them on their parents' behalf. Let's see, there are some other instances where maybe a couple companies are like paying for like patent and trademark services on a joint venture. So in those instances, everyone needs to get an invoice for their portion, like whether it's like a 50-50 split or 30-30-30, any kind of combination there. Everyone needs to get an invoice and also be made aware of what the full amount is and what they're responsible for. And it presents another challenge because your attorney, if you're working on like your principal or a partner, and you're in charge of like compensation for everyone, your attorney is working for 3 clients, but they're really only working 1 hour. So you don't want to just like add a bunch of time entries in for them because it'll seem like they're working 3 times as much as all of their peers, even though they aren't. So we've been working on a split billing solution so that you can track time, expenses in LeanLaw and bill out to all those clients and make sure you're getting paid and you can track what everyone owes. So for instance, like if we're talking about the estate example, the Bennett sisters might be contesting the estate passing to Mr. Collins when their father passes away. And they're all working with my law firm, Allen Blanchett and Schaefers, and they've come to some sort of agreement about who's going to pay for what. Elizabeth might be willing to pay for a little bit more. We can split that up just fine. And as I add time entries, like I just did for the Bennett sisters here for Austin Publishing, I'll add it to my principal client, the client that I started with, and we'll go to billing. Go here and we'll see all of my like billable hours, expenses, etc. Create the invoice and we'll see it in drafts here. And while I'm going through drafts, like I'll be able to see what the split is. And as I make adjustments here, like if I see a time entry that doesn't belong on this invoice, like, oops, I meant to track that for a different client and update it and send it to like a different matter, a different client. These totals will update to reflect that and reflect the like full invoice amount and the split. And then when all is said and done with that, we'll send it to QuickBooks and it will create an invoice for each one of the clients that you're billing to. So in this case, let's see, I think there'll be 4. And this is something that we still have in progress. So there are a couple kinks that we're working out, but you'll be able to see, here we go. So this is the principal client and the matter, and then each of the other clients that are interested in the matter. We can open this up and it'll take a second. And like I said, we're still working on this and I know that the engineering team is releasing updates to this right now. So we might see something new or we might find that it takes a sec. Here we go.
Karen
Cool.
is saying that this will be great for her mediation client.
Yes, that's another great example.
When it goes live. Yeah, exactly. And the neat thing about it is that it reduces human error, right? Because you put the percentages in and then that way you're not having to calculate the percentages manually with each and every invoice that's created. And there's also transparency, like this is the full amount of the bill, but this is the amount that each party was charged. There's transparency and it also reduces human error, which is really great. excited for this
Yeah.
one to go live when it's ready, when it's fully baked.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and so like you can see, we have the account summary for our invoices, and this one is for Elizabeth. So her account summary is just her like balance forward in QuickBooks. Austin Publishing has like another outstanding balance for other matters, and it's not included there. So if one of the sisters is behind on payments all the time, and you need to send a bill to her and say, hey, like we have this amount outstanding, we can generate that for you really easily, and there won't be any confusion about, is she on the hook for the full balance? You can keep all that separate because it's a separate client in QuickBooks for each of them and a separate invoice. So you can also manage the trust. If you have a trust account for each of them, you can manage that separately. You can generate payment links for each invoice on its own. So if I wanted to like email the invoice, it will generate like this account summary here. The payment link will just be for this invoice. It won't be for the full amount. So it makes like getting paid on split billing matters super, super simple. And then if we actually look at how this will show up in QuickBooks, you won't see this on the LeanLaw version of the invoice, but you guys are accountants and bookkeepers, so I know that you'll appreciate this part. I should have logged in before we started.
Melissa, do you have a sense of when split billing will be ready for general use?
Yeah, we're putting the finishing touches on it, and we'll make it available for some firms in a couple weeks, and then we'll do some testing for like kind of the full billing life cycle, just to make sure that to get any like feedback on any things that we've missed, and if there are any issues, keep track of them. So sorry. Oh, go ahead. Oh, maybe that was just my echo on my end. But the invoice in QuickBooks will show you all of the like individual line items themselves. And then we'll create an adjustment for like what's being paid by other parties. So you'll see an adjustment 90% paid by other folks. So the invoices themselves are like, if you want to run a statement for one of the Bennett sisters, you can do that easily and it will be the right amount, but you'll still keep the full context of what's going on.
Melissa, why is it going to billable expense income instead of like legal services? Is it just
Yeah, this is for I think that
oh, are these just these are the expenses. Okay, sorry.
these are the expenses. Yeah. Yeah, and there will be an adjustment for when this is released, there will be an adjustment for each line item group. So for billable expense income, for advanced client costs, for legal services, there will be an adjustment for each of those.
Okay, right now it's just, is it all just in one right at the moment?
Yeah, it's all just in one
Okay.
at the moment.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions about that? I know there's a lot of moving parts there for sure.
There was one question, actually, it was relating to the M365 integration, the Outlook integration. Karen is wondering when that will be available for pros. She said she'd like to become familiar with it before rolling it out to clients. So do you know when that might be released to the accountant accounts?
Yeah, we can enable it for you after this call. It's a user managed like setting as well for a while people are getting used to it. But yeah, Debbie, if you we can follow up after this and we'll make sure you get access later today.
Yeah, perfect. All right, we are just about at time because I told you guys I was going to give you 30 minutes back as my gift to you today. Melissa, were there any other coming releases that you're planning on talking through today?
I could also talk about Billables AI, but if we're out of time,
we're getting pretty close to
time.
time. So what I can, yeah, we can talk about that next time. And I can also, when we are getting closer to release on that, I'll send out a video on that one as well to the groups. If there are, Karen is saying she's actually referring to the new time entry screen itself, the new UI.
Yeah, it's all rolled into one. So the time entry screen, the M365 requires you to be using the new time entry screen, and we can make sure that you get access to both of those.
Beautiful. If there are any other questions that you guys think about after the call, feel free to fire me over an email and we'll get those questions answered right away. And Linda says she's excited for billable AI. So that was a good little teaser, Melissa. So yeah, like I said, if you guys have any questions that you think of after the fact, just send me an email and we'll get those taken care of. We will do another one of these quarterly roundtables in about 3 months. That'll be the plan. Do them once a quarter, and the format will be pretty similar. We'll share a best practices on something like Tracie did today, sharing how to get the account set up. And then we'll also have most likely Melissa or someone else from our product team join us to share what's recently been released and maybe some sneak peeks at things that are coming. If there are any feature requests that you guys have, or if there's ever anything that you're like, goodness, this takes 4 clicks, but is there any way we could do it in 2? Anything like that, always send those over to me in an email, and I will run them by Melissa and the product team to see if it's something we can add to the roadmap, or maybe a user experience that we can either review, that type of thing. But just know that you do have the ear of the product team when you're part of our PRO program. And so always just make sure you send those questions and those suggestions, and I'll get them floated to the right people. So with that, thank you all so much for joining me today, and I will look forward to chatting with all of you again really soon. All right. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Tracie, for your time. I appreciate you guys. Have a
Bye.
great day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, all.
Bye-bye.